So, I was recently watching one of my favorite VGC YouTubers, and he said something interesting. He said,
There are more possible Pokemon teams than atoms in the known universe.
this was obviously hyperbole, but it does bring up an interesting question, which is how many different Pokemon teams actually are there? For this video, we will define a distinct Pokemon team as one which is competitively unique. What I mean when I say this is that if the two teams function the same competitively, then they are actually the same. So the two teams on screen are the same. We'll consider them the same team despite them actually having differences. We will also be using the regulation I rule set to determine what constitutes a valid team. First, let's calculate how many possible EV spreads there are. The way EV spreads work is that after the first 4 EVs invested, you gain 1 stat point, and then for every subsequent 8 EVs invested, you gain 1 point. You get a total of 510 EV points, and you can invest a maximum of 252 in 1 stat. To calculate this, we need to split it up into cases. No EV investment, 1 stat invested, 2 stat invested, and so on, up to 6 stats invested. Then we can add these up to get the final number. Obviously, there's 1 EV spread with no investment. It's just no investment. There are additional 32 times 6 different ways to invest only 1 stat, as there are 6 different stats and 32 different amounts that you can invest. For 2 stats, there are 15 different 2 stat combinations and 1,024 ways to invest in those 2 stats. For 3, 4, 5, and 6 stats invested, we can use the stars and bars method. Before we look at how to do this, I want to go over some brief terminology because we're going to get into some math. When I say X choose Y, that means the number of ways to choose Y items out of X items. So if I say 5 choose 2, I'm saying the number of ways to choose 2 items given that you have 5 items to choose from. This number has a mathematical formula that I'll use to calculate the true number of options. Let's walk through how to do this for 3 stats, and the process is very similar for 4, 5, and 6 stats. Since we are investing in exactly 3 stats, we can put the first 4 EVs into each of the 3 stats. There are 6 choose 3 ways to choose which stats we're investing in, and that comes out to 20 different ways. Now for each additional 8 EVs that we add, we get 1 stat point. Since we have 496 EVs left, we get 62 stat points to distribute. To count all possible EV spreads, we need to consider the case where we use 0 of these points, the case where we use 1 of these points, and so on all the way up to 62 of these points. Using the stars and bars method, which is a mathematical method, we get that this is equal to 2 choose 2 plus 3 choose 2 plus all the way up to 64 choose 2. Here we can use a mathematical identity called the hockey stick identity to get that this is equal to 65 choose 3. However, we did overcount a little. You cannot invest more than 252 EVs into 1 stat. This is equivalent to not being able to invest more than 31 of our 62 stat points into 1 stat. We can adjust by subtracting the number of ways that are invalid. This comes out to 3 times 35 choose 3. This brings our total number of 3 stat invested EV spreads to 6 choose 3 times 65 choose 3 minus 35 choose 3. This comes out to around 500,000. Now if we do this for 4 stats, 5 stats, and 6 stats, we get that 4 stats is around 7 million, 5 stats is around 42 million, and 6 stats is around 79 million. This brings us to a total of almost 130 million EV spreads. Now let's consider IVs. There are 16 to the 6th power different IV spreads for a level 50 Pokemon, but not every EV and IV spread combination results in a unique stat spread. The way we can account for this is by pretending as if certain stats have maxed IVs, and these are stats that the EVs are invested in, and the other stats can have every possible IV value. This ends up counting the number of EVs and IV combinations exactly. So doing this, we get over 5.7 billion. Now we can get some quick stuff out of the way. There are 25 different natures, though 5 of those natures are competitively identical, so really there are 21 different competitively distinct natures. Multiplying this out, there are about 120 billion stat spreads, including IVs, EVs, and natures. Another note, the current count slightly overcounts the number of stat spreads a Pokemon can have because different EV spreads can result in the same stats because of the nature. But because natures are a percentage boost and EVs and IVs are a flat boost, how many overcounted becomes based on the actual Pokemon you're considering, and it's small enough where it doesn't have a major effect on the number of total teams, so we're just going to ignore that. Additionally, on average, each Pokemon has 2 abilities. There are 19 Terratypes, and there are 124 competitively distinct items. This multiplies out to 4,712 extra bits. Now we are going to do the biggest bit of estimation. We're going to assume that each Pokemon has the same number of moves. Without this assumption, there would not be an easy way to calculate the number of different move combinations for each Pokemon, so we'll just assume that each Pokemon has 58 distinct moves. This means that we can calculate that the number of possible movesets is 58 choose 4. However, this is not entirely accurate, as it does make a competitive difference where your moves are placed. If you do not select a move, the top move is selected. Since for each set of 4 moves, there are 4 moves that can be the top move, we get that there are a total of 4 times 58 choose 4 possible move sets. Now, accounting for the number of PP each move can have, we get 4 to the 4th power, as we have 4 options for how much PP each move can have, and we have 4 moves. So the total number of move sets is 4 to the 4th power times 4 times 58 choose 4, which is about 434 million. Now let's count how many Pokemon combinations there are. Since we're in Regulation I, there are 3 cases. No restricted Pokemon on the team, 1 restricted Pokemon on the team, or 2 restricted Pokemon on the team. There are 35 restricted Pokemon and 1,211 restricted pairs. You'll notice that the number of pairs is slightly less than 35 times 35, and this is because certain restricteds cannot be paired with other restricteds. For example, Calyrex Ice Rider and Calyrex Shadow Rider cannot be used on the same team. Additionally, there are 904 legal non-restricted Pokemon, and that includes alternate forms. So there are 904 choose 6 possible no-restricted teams, 904 choose 5 times 35 1 restricted teams, and 904 choose 4 times 12, 11 2 restricted teams. However, which Pokemon are in the first 4 slots actually matters, as if you time out, the first 4 Pokemon are chosen. Additionally, the order of those first 4 actually matters because Ditto copies the Pokemon on its side. So 2 teams with different orders would be competitively different. Thus, we need to multiply by 6, choose 1, times 5, choose 1, times 4, choose 1, times 3, choose 1, or 360 for each possible case. Thus, the total number of combinations of Pokemon is this on screen, which comes out to over 300 quadrillion. That is a 3 with 17 zeros after it. Finally, let's consider gender. The gender of the Pokemon does matter in niche situations, like when using Charm or Rivalry. Around 5/6 of Pokemon have gender, so we will be multiplying by 2 to the 5th to consider the genders of all the Pokemon on our team. To finally find the total number of teams, we just need to multiply the number of Pokemon combinations by the number of movesets, stat spreads, genders, and extras. However, we have to raise the number of movesets, the number of stat spreads, and the number of extras to the 6th power because we needed to do these for each of the Pokemon, and we just calculated them for one Pokemon. So we get this expression on screen. So the final number of teams is this, which is about 2.9 times 10 to the 151. If for every atom in the universe you had a galaxy, and for each atom in these galaxies you had 10,000 Pokemon teams, you would have about the same number of teams as if you had all possible combinations. In conclusion, there are a lot of possible Pokemon teams. Shout out to Amber in the Discord for guessing the closest to this number. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.